Morning, guys. We are going to complete day 3 of 11.3 notes. I already started 11.3 notes. We had already done a couple of these examples. I'm going to get to the more difficult questions today, so I'm going to do one square root, I'll do one cube root, and then I'm going to skip and do number 7 because number 7 involves FOIL and a quadratic, and I want to make sure that we cover the more difficult questions today. So remember that these steps are to isolate your radical, then you're going to raise the power to both sides, the same power, and then you're going to solve, and then step 4, you have to make sure that you check. Okay, so we're sticking with those same steps today. So step number 1 is isolate the radical. Could be radical, could be power. So my radical is already isolated in number 1. Number 2, you're going to raise both sides to the reciprocal power. This one is a square root, so I'm going to raise it to the reciprocal, which is squaring both sides. When you square the square root, they cancel each other out, and you're left with what's underneath. Square the right side, 5 squared is 25. Step number 3 is you're going to solve for x. Sometimes it's linear, sometimes it's going to be a quadratic, sometimes it's going to be just solving square roots. So I'm going to subtract 1. I get p squared equals 24. I'm continuing to square. Now it says solve for x, but obviously there's a p in this question. I'm going to simplify square root of 24. Remember, every time that you solve a square root, you got to throw the plus or minus sign out there. Square root of 24. 24 is 4 times 6, which simplifies down into 2 squared to 6. You have to have the plus or minus sign with even functions or even roots. Okay. Step number 4 is you have to check. For extraneous solutions, extra, wrong solutions. Now I didn't leave myself a lot of room here, so I'm just going to use a sticky note. You guys should have plenty of room, you know, on your notebook paper. So I'm going to check. Going back to my original equation, I'm plugging in plus or minus 2 squared to 6. And again, it's p, not really x, but. So square root of 2 squared to 6 squared plus 1. When I square this, I'm going to get back to where I started, so this is going to be 24. 2 squared is 4. Square root of 6, square root of 6. Square root of 24 plus 1. Square root of 24 plus 1 is square root of 25. Square root of 25 is 5. On the right side, the answer is 5. So it checks. All is well. So that was a square root question, solving by using square roots. Not a linear, not a quadratic. Question number 3 we had already done in the Zoom. Question number 3, I'm going to isolate my x. So this is what I'm isolating. I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. 16 minus 7 is 9. I'm going to raise it to the reciprocal power. The reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 over 1, and that was the last lesson that we just did, is raising it to the reciprocal power. Let me zoom in here a little bit. These cancel, and you're just left with 9x. 9x on this side, 9 squared is 81, and I'm solving for x. So now I'm on to step 3. Divide by 9, and I get x equals 9. Do my check. Not optional. Check my answer of x equals 9. So I'm plugging it back into my original. 9 times 9 is 81. The 1/2 power means square root. Parentheses, 81 exponent 1/2 means square root of 81. Square root of 81 is 9. 9 plus 7 is 16. So it does check. All is well with that question. I'm going to skip question number 5. No, I'll do 5 and then I'll do a quadratic. 5 is the third root, so I'm raising it to the third power. It's already isolated, so I get to skip step number 1 on this because it's isolated. Number 3 I had to isolate. Number 1 was already isolated. So when I cube the cube root, I get b minus 2. 2 cubed is 8. Now I'm just solving for x, which technically is a b in this question. So I get b equals 10. Check. In my original equation, cube root of 10 minus 2. 10 minus 2 is 8. Cube root of 8 is 2. Right side says equals 2. 2 definitely equals 2. And it checks out. The check doesn't take you very long. You have to show this work. If you use a calculator, fine. But you have to make sure that you show that work. Okay, second page, 7 through 12, get a lot more intense. All of the steps on this second page are going to be the same. You're going to have quadratics, and you're going to have a bunch of factoring or FOIL to do. So it says isolate. This is my radical. I'm already isolated. So I'm now clearing the root, raising it to the reciprocal power. Square root, reciprocal is 2. Square the right side. When I square the square root on the left side, I'm left with x plus 3. This time, however, on my right side, I have x minus 3 squared. X minus 3 squared means x minus 3 times x minus 3, and I have to FOIL that. So when I FOIL, I get x times x times negative 3, negative 3 times x, negative 3 times negative 3. Add my middle two terms, so I get x squared minus 6x plus 9. When you square a binomial, you're going to get a trinomial. The other option that we did is we did the box method. When you're multiplying, if you're doing the box method, you get x times x times negative 3. This is like your math Punnett square here. And then you add these middle terms together. Whether you do it horizontal method or you do it the box method, either way you should come out with a trinomial that is a quadratic right here. Okay, now I have a quadratic because I have an x squared. So I need to set my equation equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract x and I'm going to subtract 3. Subtract 1x and subtract 3. So I get 0 on the left side, which is what I want because I have a quadratic. And then I have x squared. Now I'm just adding like terms here. So negative 6 and negative 1 make negative 7. Positive 9 and negative 6, or sorry, positive 9 and negative 3 make positive 6. Now I have a quadratic, so I'm going to factor because I have a trinomial. Looking for what multiplies to be 6, that adds to be 7, would be 6 and 1. My middle sign is negative, last sign is positive, so negative times a negative makes a positive. Now that I have it factored, I'm to the point where I'm going to solve. So I'm setting each part equal to 0, so x minus 6 equals 0, x equals 6. X minus 1 equals 0, x equals 1. But you have to check, because maybe those two answers are not going to work. It's possible that neither one of them work. It's possible that both of them work. Or one of the two could definitely be an answer. Okay, I'm going to make my checkbox a little bit bigger over here because now I have two that I have to check. So I'm checking first x equals 6. Going back to my original equation, 6 plus 3, so square root of 6 plus 3 is square root of 9, square root of 9 is 3. Right side of the equation, I have 6 minus 3, which is 3. Square root of 9 is 3, 3 equals 3, this answer is good. Check my second answer that I got x equals 1 is my second answer. Going back to my original, plugging it in. Square root of 1 plus 3 is square root of 4. Square root of 4 is 2. On the right side of the equation, I have 1 minus 3. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. 2 does not equal negative 2. So I'm kicking out my second answer of x equals 1. So my only true answer is x equals 6. All the questions on this second page, you're going to have to FOIL on the right side. So FOIL number 7. You're going to have to FOIL number 8 on the right side. You're going to have to add your x over here. And you're going to have to FOIL that. You're going to have to FOIL this once you add your 2x over. No FOIL for number 11 and no FOIL for number 12. But you are going to get a quadratic. So you're going to have some sort of quadratic answer. It's possible to get 2 solutions. It's possible to get 1 solution. It's possible to get no solution. You have to check. The only way to know is by doing step number 4, which is checking your answer. So this is day 3, final notes. Some of these questions you're going to see if you did it on the extra assignment. If you did it on the extra assignment, these examples, some of them are going to kind of repeat themselves. So I'm going to throw out extra assignment number 7, and that would be questions 13 through 20. So questions 1 through 12, that is your homework. Have a great week. I will see you Tuesday.